It's spring, week 4 in Apothecaria. My witch sends a poem for Pip. Hey there, Parz here with Drawing Expressions. Yeah, we've been doing this Apothecaria-based episodic writing journey, and yeah, we're deep into it now. This is the 9th episode. Yeah, so we're in week 4. This is a rest period, and so no one to cure today. So instead, we're sort of left to our own devices, and we'll see how that goes as we get into things. So before I start to jump into that, let's get through a couple of things I like to start with. The first thing is mentioning that guidelines bend. They don't break. And so just keep that in mind whenever I mention anything, or if I don't mention something. It's all guidelines. If you don't like it, just don't pay attention to it. If you've got a better idea, follow it and then let me know, because that's kind of cool. Okay. In the planner section for today, it's the story, and how the story came together within that creative mixing bowl. Within the pantser section, we're going to be doing something called sub-creating. We're going to be talking about it. This is a term that I heard about through J.R.R. Tolkien, or not through him. I don't know him because he's dead. But yeah, a quote of his. And yeah, so it gets kind of interesting, I think. But before we dive into that, let me invite you to sit nicely upright, your butt in its seat, and get ready to take a nice deep breath in. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Big inhale in. And stretch. There we go. I don't know about you, but the exhale just kind of happens on its own. And that's good. That's okay. There's no rule about the whole exhale thing. There's no rule on the inhale thing either, because that's all guidelines. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about what we're going to be doing for today, which is a poem for Pip. So I'm going to invite you to sit back and listen to the narrative, and then after the narrative comes all the explanations of what was going on in this crazy noggin when I put it all together. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to, if you don't have one yet, pause here, go grab yourself a beverage, get comfortable, and here we go. 2 days. If anyone ever asks if things can get messy working as a witch, not only is the answer yes, but I know how messy. The answer is 2 days worth of scrubbing, soaking, mopping, scraping, and airing. Vomit people, well, I'm sure, are quite lovely. They are tremendously messy and stinky. As predicted, the cleaning worked my anger out over the doctor's atrocious attitude to my work and the cures, both of them, I effected. Okay, maybe not completely over it, but at least I can think of him as a difficult patient and not as someone to be shunned. No doubt, at some point, a patient of mine will reject my efforts or not have a cure within their own time frame and go to the doctor instead. I just hope they're prepared to have their urine examined. I have to admit that still makes me chuckle. Like that's gonna tell you anything. And the bleeding thing. Keep more of your bits on the inside, I say, rather than feed leeches. Oh well, each to their own. Anyway, it feels good to finally have things clean and smelling good again. I realize it's part of the job dealing with magical maladies, but still. Maybe I could ask for a cleanup fee. Or not. After all, I still have a mess I'll need to handle at some point in the future. That meeting I promised of that weird 3-armed Igor and his Marther, the vampiric necromancer, named Count. Although that's probably just his title, just like mine's Witch. I wonder what his real name is. Probably best not to ask. He'd want me to reveal mine, and that's just not going to happen. I didn't give a specific date for it. Maybe that would delay it indefinitely? Watch, someday, an hour or two after sundown, they'll show up on the grounds. Best not to think that again and tempt fate. However, if it happens, I'll just deal with it. Of course, it's easier being brave here, where the cottage and the grounds are either living things or connected to something far more powerful than I can comprehend. Trusting in that, I go to bed, exhausted from my cleaning efforts, wiped from working through my emotions, but enjoying the smell of clean, and wake to the morning smells of spring on the breeze. The sun just rising, the familiar sounds outside, the enfolding warmth of a slept-in bed whose tendrils gently try to lull me back to sleep. In a word, normal. It's tempting to close my eyes again and give myself a sleep-in day, but a thought struck me regarding my reagents, and I'm looking forward to putting it into practice, and that, while I might be able to do while lying in bed, head on pillow, warm blanket wrapped around me against the morning chill. With the sun shining down, the day well underway, I guess I needed that extra dose. But enough sleeping, sleepyhead. Time to get doing. And so I did. And with my morning routine out of the way, it's time to... What's that on the mantelpiece? A basket? How did a basket get there? Did Dr. Know-It-All sneak in here and drop it off as an apology for being insufferable? I mean, it'd be nice if that were the case and he was truly sorry and all, but how would he have gotten it in here without my knowing? What a mystery. I suppose I should look for a note. This is what the note said. Dear sweet bestie, hello pen pal and bestie. I love making hearts. I'm glad you like them. I am sending you a few helpful reagents. First vial, coffee weed. 1-star plant. Smells like coffee, serve warm with honey. Smoke for headache, crush for added energy, boil and drink. This is a garden harvest. The second vial, skeleton dust. 2 stars, magic, good for teeth, bones, and hair. Third vial, vampire venom. 3 stars, animal, good for curse, pain, and mood. I had 48 hours fighting for those last 2, so I wanted to hopefully spare you the time. I have 3 ducks. Do you like ducks? Tick box for yes, and tick box for no way. Your friend forever, Pip. Oh, it's from Pip. This is a pleasant surprise. And there's something called coffee weed, a bit of honey, a bit of tea, her favorite, some skeleton dust, some vampire venom, and 3 chocolate chunk cookies. Strange, I just dealt with an ailment using those last 2. Is it possible she's more here and less not here? She likes asking questions, this time it's about ducks, so maybe I should ask something and see if she's experiencing the same things I am. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's first brew up her tea, and add the honey, sounds yummy, and take things one step at a time. Let's see. Maybe a bit of a to-do list. In no particular order. Number 1, enjoy tea. Number 2, figure out how to divide up the cookies. They look delicious, so I bet others will enjoy them as much as I will. Number 3, catalog my reagents, including this new one. Number 4, thank Pip properly. Number 1 is easy. Tick. Number 2, I'd like some cookie. They look so good, but I bet Mouse Eye would like some, and a piece should go into the spirit house. Ooh, as should a spot of this wonderful tea. So 1 for me, 1 for Mousy, and then the house makes 3. Tick. Number 3, I'm going to organize my reagents by what they cure with a division in those lists for location. For instance, for mood reagents, I currently have 2, so I'll list them on the mood page like this. So mood, wigfish, 3 stars in Meltwater Loch, and then songberries, 1 star in Glimmerwood Grove. I figure the most important attributes of any reagent is what are its efficacies. So seeing that is a better way to organize a reagent list than most any other way. Of course, this being totally untried, it may be a bunch of work that ends up being a waste, but I figure I'll try it, have a bit of fun as I do it, maybe enlist Mouse Eyes' help, and see how it works out. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. But before I do that, I need to focus properly on my note back to Pip. And to do that, I need to sip on some more tea, take a bite of this cookie, oh my, it's so good, and compose something appropriate. I think I'll compose a bit of a poem. It's something I've been thinking about doing, so maybe I'll share my first one with her, and include a bit of wild rose since it's growing so nicely in its plot. Okay, to compose, some ideas like being here yet not here, and seeing the sky and wondering if we see the same thing. So my note that I wrote to Pip says this: Hi Pip, thank you so much for all these gifts. I'm enjoying the tea and a cookie as I write this. Mouse Eye, his mouth full of cookie, also says thank you, although it sounds more like meow, meow. I'm including some wild rose. It's growing next to the cottage and smells so nice. Do you have wild rose where you are? I'm not sure how I feel about ducks. It looks like you like them. Here's my first poem. I hope you like it. The cloud that I see, white, fluffy, free, I wonder, can it be that you see it too? Or is it only me? It carries smiles from me to you across miles and miles. Your friend forever, Sweet. Not bad. And now I think I'm not going to do much. This witch needs her rest. And that is the end of the episode. And it was a short episode, but still, time to do a little breathing and stretching. Join me, won't you? Deep breath in. And stretch. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the creative mixing bowl, those elements that came together that made this episode. So the first element that I like to put in is the guidebook prompts. And today's guidebook prompts is nothing. Yep, second week in a row that we chose to not use prompts. And there's nothing wrong with skipping a couple of weeks, especially rust weeks. It can be refreshing to have a sort of a blank canvas to work with and to not be guided by the guidebook. And so, yeah, so we've opted this second week to not. Following weeks, we do. The other prompt that where we can now start to get prompts from is not guidebook prompts, but prompts coming in from the outside. In this case, it is going to be the letter from Pip. So in other words, from my lovely lady love, Alicia. And she sent me this lovely, lovely picture of what she wrote in her journal. So this is one of those ways that you can kind of share a page. You can share a note without actually having to rip something out of your journal or your book. You don't have to use the mail service. You can just take a photo and then send it to somebody. Send it to a friend, someone who's playing along with you. And yeah, it's a really fun way to kind of to do things. And you know, if you don't even want to go that far, you can just type it into an email, off it goes, and then you can capture and then slide it in, or you can summarize when you're writing about what it is that you've received. Okay, so now let's talk about what's been written before, or where are we right now. So a few things that we can highlight in, despite the fact this is a relatively short episode. One is my friendship with Pip is developing. And, you know, despite the fact that we are in the here yet not here, you know, as is technically everybody. Yeah, so we're passing notes back and forth, getting to know each other a little bit better. She's got her life going on. My witch, Sweet, has got her life going on. And yeah, and so they can sort of develop both separately and also together by sharing information, sharing notes. Another tidbit here is Sweet does enjoy her sleep. So do I. Okay, next is Sweet mentioned in a prior episode, it wasn't that long ago, that she wanted to lean into or get into writing some poetry. And so Pip just asked her for one. And so, you know, how much more invitation do you need to write one. So that's why the poem got included. And yeah, so there's going to be other tidbits that come up. Also keep in mind that for me, the writer, I did the limerick not too long ago, and that was kind of fun to insert that in there. And so having these little bits and pieces where I can play around with point of view and different styles of writing, little poems and things and little stories within the broader story of Apothecaria and Sweet's adventures and whatnot. This is really working for me, and I'm very much enjoying it. And the last thing I wanted to mention here is we know the space behind the spirit house has some sort of magical portal of some sort, that connects Sweet's cottage to Pips's. And I've hinted at Sweet's wondering what would happen if something bigger came through. Something bigger came through. How did I handle it? It ended up on the mantelpiece, just sort of boom, right there. Okay, and now let's talk about the imagination piece in all of this. So one thing I'd been trying is a method of cataloging the various reagents in the guidebook. And so I wrote that in as part of the narrative. This is something that I'm finding really helps me to express what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, and to do it through the narrative in these episodes, so that it comes across as authentic. It comes across as it gives an insight into what I'm doing, and I can give an honest view, an honest feedback as to how things are progressing forward. That said, I am, as I said, several weeks ahead now, and there are so many reagents, and keeping track of inventory and keeping track of what everything can cure and where it's all located is becoming a bigger and bigger task. And I am now moving into spreadsheet world, and I'm just starting to put that together. And I'm finding that enjoyable right now as well, because I'm a trained accountant and wannabe data scientist. Spreadsheets used to be my bread and butter, and so yeah, they make me happy when I play with them. Okay, and so in writing the poem to Pip, I started with something that felt somewhat common to us both, and that being the clouds, and is also easily accessible to understand. So I didn't start with, say, like the mail portal, right? Because I'm not sure what this thing is or how it works, what terms to use, some sort of connection. If you were in a technological world, you'd probably be talking about like quantum tunneling or black hole or something, some linkage that's working. In Apothecaria, it being more magical, so we're talking about a magical type of power or a spirit or whatever, because there is a lot of holistic, all-encompassing energies that I like to talk about, because that's where I operate. That is something that that I know and am familiar with and work with. So to talk about things in those terms, they help me to express myself better. With the poem, I chose to use a very, very simple rhyming scheme, right? Just the ends of the first three lines, they all rhyme. And then there's a little bit of a twist in there as things come together. So yeah, so there's a playfulness. It's simple, but also it's there's that little bit of a twist. I'm not doing things strictly technically. Well, if there is a technically, I'm playing with guidelines on my poem. And yeah, so it's just a fun little thing, fun little twist, and I think it gives a little sense of who is Sweet. So we have some that are things that you would more expected, and things that are a little bit less expected. and they all kind of marry in together into this one person. Let's get into a discussion item, this being the Panzer section, and subcreation. Subcreation is our discussion item for today. And again, this was a term that I heard. It was used by J.R.R. Tolkien. And so Tolkien, if you're not aware, he is the guy who wrote The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and the whole mythos behind all of it. And he had a really expansive view of what is subcreating. So he acknowledged that he lives in the primary world, right? That was his term, primary world. I'm going to call it maybe like real world, or in real life, and existed within it, right? And we all do this. Then within that real world, we all create, right? We create our lives inside the bigger world. And so for Tolkien, he had his life that he created, right? So his habits and his acquaintances and his inspirations and his writing and all that stuff. So when he was writing, he actually viewed himself as being a little maker, that a writer is a little maker. And so you are creating a world much like the one that we all live in, and it's sort of a subset of the real world, right? It highlights certain pieces and parts, it ignores other certain pieces and parts, but it's, you've created a world, and then within that world you're going to populate it with thinking beings that we're going to follow and read their stories, and you're going to have settings, and you're going to have all of that stuff. And for each of these characters, depending on how deeply you dive, they're subcreating their own lives, their own livelihoods, their own cultures, their own songs, their own languages, all of that stuff. And each layer you are subcreating, deeper and deeper and deeper within a. It's almost like you're going down in like shells, right? Like a shell game, like deeper, 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 deeper. And so that's what we're kind of doing here. And so, like, for me, I'm existing in the real world, and I'm writing this Apothecaria story, so subcreating that. And then within that, there's Sweet, who is now creating her world with all of her things and running into characters, people. And they're all building their little lives. They're all subcreating, right? So we're all kind of doing this together. So you may be asking the question, well, so what? And the answer is, for me anyway, is it helps to explain why, as a little maker or a little creator, why it is that when we start working with our characters, and especially you work with them for a while, and you really start to care about them. And the thing about story is only interesting if something bad happens. If you have a friend and they travel to a certain place, and they travel overseas, and you ask how the trip went, yeah, it was great. Sun, surf, lots of drinks. Okay, sounds nice. But if it was a series of disasters, yeah, the plane, it broke down, and then they had to stick us on a bus and then take us to the coast, and then they put us on a ferry, and that took 18 hours, and then the ferry, it like collided with a reef, and that's where it gets interesting. That is where we're following along, and that we want to hear more. We want to hear more. You're okay because you're here telling the story, but we want to hear about every disaster and how it worked out for you, and how things, that's the story. That's what's interesting. And so when you have that connection to your character or to your characters, and you care for them, and you don't want bad things to happen, and you want them to live their best lives. And now, as the writer, there's only one way that they experience story, bad stuff, is you. You have to put it into the narrative. They have to experience it, and you are writing down the experiences. You are following as your characters, your beloved characters that you've created and you've put time and energy into. You have to do horrible things to them and then watch and see what happens. There is a little bit of an out on that, which is you can also have things that are just so wildly crazy where, and so you're like into the comic, the humor side of things, that there's less need for disaster and there's just more need for funny. I like that one. Has Sweet ever failed a cure? No. No, I just can't bear the thought of her failing a cure. It'd be interesting. It'd be a good story to follow. It would be all sorts of things. And I know at some point she's going to, because it's just going to happen. But oh boy, it's going to be a sad day when it does. Because, you know, I feel responsible for my characters. I want them to live good lives. Anyways, that is the video for today. So let me, or the things I wanted to cover for today. So let me go to my Drawing Expressions haiku. A creative space, holistically supportive. Please like, share, subscribe. And with that, thank you so much for joining me on this piece of the journey. I hope you've been with me for the entire piece of the journey and you continue to watch. And I'll see you next time in 2 weeks. Bye for now.